What's up, everybody? Austin Cheviron here with the Winning Twice podcast. I got Chandler Bolt here today. This is going to be a very interesting conversation, in my opinion, because Chandler's one of the first people that I've had on here that we haven't invested hours or years with, Chandler. And so I'm kind of a little nervous today to see what comes out of our conversation. But I can tell you with me, buddy, I'm just real and authentic. I rip the Band-Aid off. We go, we have fun. And as we were just talking earlier, we're both very competitive in a very positive way. So, Chandler, can you give us the 50,000 foot view of kind of what you do at your company and what is it?
Yeah, so selfpublish.com, we help people write and publish books that grow their business. We believe that books change lives. We're in the business of changing lives through books. And so that's what we do all day, every day. We've published about 7,000 books over the last decade, have done 75, $80 million in revenue roughly over that time period, and changed a lot of lives, published a bunch of books along the way.
Now you just said, and I study you when we first met about 6 months ago. So I like to study people. What are they doing? How are they doing it? When people hear you say we've done 70 to $80 million over the last decade, and they look at you, you're not 50. So let's be real, right? Like you didn't start this when you were 43. So how old were you when this whole adventure started?
Oh my gosh, depends on how do you define started. I mean, when this business started, I was probably 20, 21 years old or so.
Okay.
When I got into business, I mean, it was high school and starting little companies here and there and kind of getting bitten by the entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah. So I like to talk about financials, and people, unfortunately, people see the end result of where we're at. And it's like, well, you're obviously doing well, but they don't understand the struggles, the risk, the times in which like you're betting it all and you're hoping that it hits red or black. And you're confident in your decision, but it's still it can be a coin flip. How long did it take you to get out of the cycle of investing? I'm assuming investing everything you got back into the company to help it grow.
At least 3 years. I mean, at least 3, if not 4 years to start making money from the business. This is what I think is hilarious, Austin. People think $1 million business, and yeah, we hit $1 million in our second year in business, and they think you're a millionaire. And you got $1 million business, you're lucky if you even make 6 figures. I mean, there's a lot of broke 7-figure entrepreneurs. And so I'll never forget early on, I mean, it was just thinking that the finish line is right here, and the finish line keeps getting pushed further and further and further away. And so I remember the first year we started the business, we did $84,000 in revenue, which was,
Yeah.
was pretty incredible. The only problem was
Amazing.
there's 3 of us, and that was revenue, not profit. And so
Yeah.
I remember that year making so little money. I mean, that I didn't even have to file taxes because the IRS just said, you're good. Please don't file. It says you're below the poverty line, and it's a waste of our time for us to look at this tax return. And so that's where it started.
Funny.
And then there were multiple years where I wasn't making any money. And and then all of a sudden, it's the compound effect of multiple years of work,
Yeah.
where then we went from, I think it was 75K in profit, maybe year 3 or year 4, to which, I know you know all this, Austin, but revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king, right? So profit is not cash. So you might be profitable, not have any cash in the bank, which I remember the first time someone told me that, I said, you're an idiot. It doesn't make any sense, but
Yeah.
it's true.
Well, that's what we think.
Yeah, you think it's cash in your bank account. So anyways, to make a long story longer, it was 75K in a year, and then maybe 250K, I think, was the next big breakthrough year. And then maybe the next year was maybe 950K in profit or something like that. But that is, to your point, people see that finish line and they don't realize that that was your 5, that was your 7, that was your whatever it was.
Yeah, take me back through those years. Like, okay, so for everybody who either, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who will be listening to this, Chandler, and if they don't understand math, which, just let me be clear, you should, because you run a business. If you don't get math, go learn math, or you're going to probably be broke, or you got a really good hobby that you pay for. So in business, it can be easy to move the revenue up. It's really tough to keep it. And to keep it, you have to make right strategic decisions. And unfortunately, most of my lessons, Chandler, were things I did wrong. I spent this morning on coaching calls telling everybody, here's how I lost $250,000. Don't do this, just do this. And so as you were growing through those years, do you remember a couple of those heavy investments that you made that would maybe have been a coin flip, or you went with your gut? Is there any of those investments that came out that you can remember?
So many. So many. I mean, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on mentors and coaching programs and all that stuff, and almost every time I do it, I'm terrified. Because you overthink it, you think, "Is this gonna be a good investment? Is it not?" But even something as simple as investing into the marketing of your business,
Mm,
that's terrifying, but you gotta make this is my theme for the year, is no small plans. You gotta make big swings, and I had a mentor one time, he said, "Chandler, there's a difference between taking risks and being risky. Poor
okay.
people are risky, rich people take risks, and so you're taking a risk because it's a calculated risk. Don't be risky. That's the risky is playing the lottery. Risky
Yeah.
is drunk driving. Taking a risk is saying, I'm going to invest $100,000 more into ads this month or this quarter or this year. And it's a calculated bet, betting that that's going to grow the revenue of my company. So take risks, don't be risky."
Interesting. And how do you know the difference? I'm sure there's 1,000 different ways to market a book. We published one 6 months ago now, and there was 1,000 different ways. One of the things was the money puzzle. Um, Writing a book is something interesting. I'd love for you, listening to you speak. I want to allow you to share with our listeners the best way to write a book, because I crushed on what you were saying when you were speaking on stage. I'm like, that's money right there. But when I was marketing the book, I realized there was 1,000 different ways. There was different visions. Were you trying to go for Wall Street Journal? Not Wall Street Journal. What's that
New
called? I
York Times
apologize.
bestseller or USA
Thank you.
Today or yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and the price tag was like, if we would have done it, 200 to 500,000 is what I would have had to invest, plus all the
Mhm.
other stuff. And so, how do you help your clients determine how to market the book, how much to invest?
I mean, I think it all starts with reverse engineering the outcome that you're trying to create with the book. And so is your goal to be on some vanity list, or is your goal to drive massive revenue in your business? And then that's a first distinction that if most people would say, "Oh, well, push comes to shove, I care more about revenue in my business than I do about the quantity of book sales." Okay, perfect. How do we reverse engineer that outcome then? What's a customer worth to you? Is it 10 grand? Okay, well then if we got you 100 customers, that would be what's that, $1,000,000? Okay, well then, yeah, yeah. If I'm like, you said entrepreneurs need to be able to do math. I'm like, I can't even do the math. Yeah, that's $1,000,000.
Well, that's
but
one math
but so,
problem.
so then we got to then how do we reverse engineer that outcome? And then
Yeah,
how do we say, okay, launching the money puzzle, how do we bring in 100 customers from this? Well, we probably need to get 1,000 copies in the hands of people who can afford to do business with us. Okay, well, how do we do that? And now we can start making a real marketing plan that isn't just a spray and pray marketing effort, but that's something that actually moves the needle in the business. So that's what I'm all about, is just saying, let's reverse engineer our outcomes and then just hammer the marketing so that we know if I'm going to invest a year of my life and 25 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand into this book, well, can we get $1,000,000 or half a million or whatever in revenue on the back end? And it's just simple math at that point, right? How much would you spend in ad dollars or in marketing dollars to create revenue? Okay, well, if you could get a relatively similar return on your book in year one, do you think that's worth doing? Well,
yeah.
absolutely, because the book's going to keep printing revenue in year two, year three, year four, year five, and beyond if you do it right.
Now, when I wrote a book, the first book, The Money Puzzle, I know the investment I had in it. In my head, I thought the sales would quickly pay for the cost to do it. In reality, it can, But what I found was the book isn't always about book sales, it's about other things. I mean, Mr. Wisdom here, can you help us please understand what are these other things and what does the book drive or what other options could the book drive?
There's so much, but I think what it comes down to for me is lead sales and referrals. And so this
Leads.
book right here has brought in about $7 million in sales over the last 12 months. It's brought in 8 figures total overall. It all comes back to lead sales and referrals. So leads, we give away the book everywhere in pretty much every format you can imagine, ebook, the PDF, the audio book, even free plus shipping funnels. Those just are printing money for us right now. Then sales, we integrate it into the sales process all over the place. So you start to see all the core components of your funnel get lifted. Your close rate goes up, your average order value goes up, your call booking rates go up, your cost per lead goes down. I mean, all those core things, right? And then how do you use it to get more referrals? So we put this book in the hands of customers. Customers share this book with other people. Those people often end up doing business with us, right? And so
Mhm.
now got a referral mechanism, just the way I'm sure the money puzzle is done for you and other books have done as well. And so that's just kind of how I think about it is how do we integrate it into the business so it's makes the cash register ring and brings in a ton of customers.
Well, let me read a quote here. This is just for anybody listening. I love this. Books change lives. Books look awesome. I was reading that today. I was reading it yesterday, and I'm like, how true is that? Books change lives. So think about what you do for a living, Chandler. Is I wrote my first book for my kids. Going back to your statement, books change lives. I wanted to change their life because I got two kids. They look at dad as someone who has a lot of houses, let's say, and who goes around the country and speaks for a living. And which, is kind of a cool thing to be known as dad for that. Also, it's going to set possibly the wrong tone of how I want to raise my kids and what I want them to like, hey, dad was on welfare 13 years ago. Dad hustled his butt
Mm,
off. Dad
yeah.
met people like Chandler because he took a risk and he did this. And then he was there. He asked him. He provided value. He listened to him on stage. He kept his book. He looked at it, on his my desk. And so what they won't realize is why all this stuff happened. They just see the results. So when you say books change lives, it's probably one of the best statements that I can see. And you're in the business of changing lives. Like how cool is that, man? What have you learned over the last decade of doing this? Like what did you not know back then that you know now about what you do?
Everything. Gosh. I mean, it's kinda like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
I swear I get dumber every year, Chandler.
Yeah,
I swear I'm dumber
exactly.
now than I used to be.
Same, but I think you learn a couple things. You learn, one, that there's patterns, and it is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a proven process. There is proven things that work, and yes, do those change, do those adapt, and we need to be on the cutting edge of that? Of course. But you learn that there's patterns, that success leaves clues, and I think you start to appreciate just how impactful this is for people. I mean, to your point, we facilitate one of the best days of people's life. It's probably, maybe when they got married, when they had their kids, maybe for some people when they got divorced, I don't know. And then the day that they published their book, they're like, that
Yeah.
is one of the best days of my life. And so we get to help facilitate that for people. And it's just it's an amazing thing.
I If you're okay with it,
Hmm.
let's promote one of your authors if it's okay. If you're okay with this, can you think of an author right now that writing their book, either changed their life, meant something really great to them, like far beyond an accomplishment and achievement? Is there somebody's book that we can promote and tell their story quickly, Chandler? It's one of your clients. Is
Yeah,
that
there's a
okay?
lot. There's a
I
lot of
know.
different ones. I would say,
Books
I
here,
gosh,
let me give you a
I told this
filter.
story often. Yeah, 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 maybe a
Let
filter.
let
Is
me
it
give you a
life change or is
filter.
it business growth? You're gonna talk about
Yeah.
Emma?
Yeah, I'm gonna use your
Yeah.
words with you here. So books change lives. So if you were to close your eyes for me or with me here, and when I say books change lives, do you have one author that I know there's probably many, but is there one author that you're like, man, this book really changed someone's life? Is there anything that comes to mind when I ask you that?
It's I'd say it's gotta be Emma Sumner. She was 8 years old. Her dad wrote a book with us, and she said, "Dad, that looks cool." You're saying you're known as the dad who has a lot of houses. He was, I guess, at that point phase of her life, he was known as the dad who published a book, and she said, "I wanna be like that." And so
Mhm.
she wrote a book at 8 years old. It totally changed the trajectory of her life. She was able to raise thousands of dollars for an autism awareness charity as part of the launch of that book. She went on to do speaking and made, I think, $1,200 from her first speaking gig. She gets a monthly allowance, and it's her royalty checks from her book. Her dad just said, "Hey, this got her into her dream school because she published this book." We're talking, a decade later, basically getting into her dream college. So it just altered the trajectory of that young woman's life. And so it's one that I tell often, but it just still
That's
is so close to my heart because I love Sean, her dad. I love that family, and it's just so cool to see the ripple effect of that. And I mean, it made such an impact that when we first started hosting conferences, we would have kids show up to the conference because they saw Emma. And
that's
those
cool.
kids are coming with their parents because they want to write their kids' books and all that stuff. So it's just a pretty special story.
Yeah, when you see that, it's funny. I tell people now, like, I have an obligation to do what I do. Not, it is a privilege, but it becomes an obligation when you see the true results that you can help people achieve. And it's like, man, I'm not only changing the parents' life, I'm changing the kids' lives. I'm changing their friends' life. I got other kids coming. I got all these like I have to. I don't even know the right words. Almost just I have to. I have to continue. I have to pour into these people. Um, and so it leads me actually to my next question. We'll put their book in our show notes here, give them a little bit of love, help them keep changing lives there. So what, in your opinion, what separates an author from having a successful book compared to one that just sits on Amazon, let's say?
Yeah, you've gotta market it intentionally. So there's this process that we call the one-year launch, and most successful authors, they follow that process, which is you don't just treat it as a launch week, you treat it as a launch year. And so you keep talking about that book for a year. Because if you think about just the concept of a launch, it's like Elon launching rockets, right? There's gotta be it's gotta in order for a rocket to be launched, there has to be significant thrust to even get it off the ground and into atmosphere. And gravity is just fighting and weighing down on that. That's normal books. Most books sell 100, most self-published books sell less than 100 copies. Even if you're traditionally published, you're lucky if you sell a couple thousand copies. So gravity is just pulling these books to total mediocrity or oblivion. And so you've got to put enough force to break through that. But then, like a rocket, once you get through that, and you get into the atmosphere, well, then that book can just keep orbiting and keep
Yeah.
selling and keep selling and keep selling. So you got to be very intentional about the launch and get it into orbit.
Okay. What would be the point? Probably like you, I feel like I'm on a plane every handful of weeks now, going somewhere, doing something, intentionally. They're my choice. It's not like I'm a prisoner. But every time I go up on that plane, like I relate to the struggle that plane goes through. And I grew up in as a child. I grew up flying in airplanes. I don't know how many times, hundreds and hundreds of times I was on airplanes, and I remember the moment in my childhood, and I remember just coming back from Dallas last week, the struggle that you were talking about to get up to 10,000 feet, and just the pain and the struggle and the amount of energy and gas. With the book, what does that look like in an author's world or in the publishing world to get up to 15,000 feet where you might now be able to see this? Now I can see the sun on the horizon compared to I'm below the clouds. What does that look like? How did we get
It,
there?
it looks like a lot of effort, a lot of effort. And I think, there's this concept we talk about, it's called the launch triangle. And so that's kind of the core pillars that you need to do to launch the book. So you need a launch team, you need to get as many reviews as possible, and you need to do promotions, and preferably evergreen promotions, not just one-off stuff. So then launch team, this is a small group of people who support you in the topic of this book. 15 people, 50 people, 100 plus. They read the book ahead of time. They leave a review right out of the gates, right? So now all of a sudden, if you just do one thing, just create a launch team, your book will be exponentially more successful. But then get as many reviews as possible. That's the longevity or the lifeblood of long-term sales on Amazon. And then promos. So that's kind of the accordion of, are you getting on podcasts and talking about the book? Are you doing book launch stuff? Are you doing speaking gigs? We've got, kind of all different kind of launch strategies and
Yeah.
promotion strategies and all that stuff, but like put some time, money, and energy behind the book. And that's what it takes to get out into orbit. But either way, there needs to be an economic engine, right? And so if you think about it, if that plane is flying and trying to break out of 10,000 feet or 15,000 feet or whatever else, what needs fuel? Well, what is fuel in your author plane? It's revenue. And so it's either going
Yes.
to come in the form of book sales or royalties, or it's going to come in business that comes from that book. Well, I'll tell you which one's a lot easier. It's business coming from the book. But if that thing is spitting off cash, well, then now all of a sudden you've got an unlimited fuel reserve so you can keep flying. So that's where I try to just make sure that, sure, there's going to be, you got sunk costs and you got to just go in the hole for a while. But then I want to come out of the hole. I want to be in the black, and I want to start mowing that money back into it, because I know, I mean, 7 years later or something, I guess 5 years later since I published this updated book, I mean, just last month, I think we did 100, 150K in revenue from one of our free plus shipping funnels for this book. Now,
Yeah.
so we got hundreds of more copies of this book out in the wild. Well, that could only happen if there was an economic engine, which is the 5% or less of those people who end up working with us on the back of that funnel. Right. So that's just kind of a microcosm of an example of the economic engine fueling continuous sales and continuous revenue coming from the book itself.
Yeah, I love it. And just to let all my listeners know here, when I was working through publishing The Money Puzzle, I literally used this when after I met you, I'm reading through this and I am on launch week bonuses, speaking gigs,
Mm-hmm.
traditional launch week checklist. I literally have my check mark right on here. And I'm like, okay, this guy's smart. I listened to him talk. I watched what he did. Our booths were right next to each other, and so I got to watch and to see. And I can tell you what you put in here, Brands, is excellent work, Chandler. Excellent work. Um,
Thank you.
if yeah, and I'm a hard critic, by the way. So I'm a coach. I'm a no BS, no fluff. I'll give it to you like it is. That's what the world needs of me. And when I was reading this, I'm like, this guy's good. He's not just a great speaker, because your speaking was excellent. But then coming back to the book and using the book as essentially a guide or a jig along the way, which is what I'd recommend to people. Like, seek other people that know what they're doing. One of the things actually talking to other authors is what I hear a lot, Chandler, is it took me 2 to 3 years to write my book. And I just thought, could you have hired somebody that might have helped you? Like gave you a system, gave you a process, help you get this, like books are cool, books change lives. Not, I have a book that I've never shown anybody, it never been published. And so when you were speaking last time I heard you speak, you were teaching people how to write a book actually. Does that sound familiar? The
Yeah.
the process. Can you share with that if somebody's got this idea in their head, how do they take it from that idea and actually get it moving?
Yeah. So it's a framework we call the more writing method. And so that's how to go from I've got an idea to this rough draft is finished and close to ready for publishing. So more is an acronym, stands for mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. Okay. And this is kind of to your point. I just like I don't like to just speak. I like for people to actually implement. I'm not a
Yeah.
motivational speaker.
Yeah.
I want to help people actually get their book done. So we try to simplify it all into these milestones, which I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but
What page are
it's
you
8
on?
milestones. Yeah, it's page 17 in the book, and it's actually
Okay.
all throughout the book itself. But page 17, you see kind of the milestones, which the
Yeah.
first 4 are what we call the more writing method: mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. Right. And then we've got 2 different types of editing. And then you move into formatting, cover, launch. And so that's kind of like the 8 steps to go from idea to the book's actually published. But then the first 4, to your point, is the more writing method. And that's how you get the book written.
Okay. So somebody's got an idea in their head. They might have a lot of the content. How do you coach people through the financial aspect of it? Because it costs, I mean,
Yeah.
this stuff's not cheap, everybody. Chandler's not doing this for free. He might have a great heart. There might be a lot of stories, but there's employees, there's staff, there's business. So how do you coach someone through the financial aspect, knowing that sunk costs come up front and
Yep.
ROI is, even though you can have the best plan, it's still a coin flip if somebody gets an ROI out of it,
Yeah.
right?
So I say that self publishing is entrepreneurial publishing. So you're betting on yourself. And so it's definitely not for everyone. So it's, are you willing to put up the money up front so that you keep all the IP and all the upside? And are you willing to bet on yourself? And so then if you are, well, then we say, okay, well, whether you're working with us or somebody else, to successfully publish a book is typically going to take a minimum of about 10 grand. You can spend way more than that for sure. And you could,
Yeah.
kind of cut some corners and do it on the cheap, and you can do it for less than that. But that's kind of a general threshold. Now, working with us, it's somewhere between 8 to 25 grand, typically, depending on how much help you need. So then I would just put my business owner hat and say,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm going to spend, however much it is, six months of my life, 9 months of my life, and tens of thousands of dollars, let's call it, on this, can I reasonably expect for this to create a better return than other things that I would spend that time on? If the answer is yes, then
Mm.
it's probably worth it. And then let's reverse engineer it and let's make this a major revenue driver in your business. If the answer is no, well, then it might not be worth it unless it's a passion project or something where you're saying, oh, cool. If it's just my kids read the book, well, then I'll be happy. Okay. Well, then
Yeah.
maybe we'll change our strategy a little bit and do it that way. But I think if you do it correctly, it's the best thing you can ever do for your business. It's
Okay.
also a defensible moat because most people aren't willing to do it and to put in the work that it takes. So, but it lets you plant your flag in your industry. And so that's how I think about
Yeah.
kind of the financials of the book itself.
Yeah, it's funny. So I would say one of the ladies that somebody found me is how I would say it. I was out doing my training and coaching. Before that, I was in real estate. I sold real estate. I ran a real estate team, and then I started training the world on how I did what I did. And I say this lady found me, and I didn't know who she was at the time, but she's like, I really like what you're doing and who you are. And I don't remember if she said, "Can I help you?" or she just started to help me. Well, fast forward about a year later, she was like a wizard, Chandler. It's like the people that God puts in your life to just like, wow. And I knew there was something special with her, but I didn't know what it was. And I started asking her later, I go, "Hey, tell me about you. Peel back the onion. Who are you? Where'd you come from? What are you doing?" And she told me, she goes, "Well, I worked with a guy named Tom Hopkins. And Tom Hopkins was the number one sales trainer in the world." And she's like, "I worked with him for 40 years." She goes, "I helped write his books. His number one book sold, I don't know if it's 2 to 4 million copies."
Wow.
And she said to me, she's like, "I think it's time for you to write a book." And I'm like, really? Like, I'm a numbers guy, Chandler. Letters, I'll get them mixed up, but the numbers, I can do the numbers. And I go, "Book's just a bunch of letters." And she goes, "I'll help you, Austin." And I said, "Well, why do I need to do this?" And she said this to me, and I want everybody to listen to this because this is the one thing she said that completely changed. And she's always correct, by the way. She said, "This is going to be your new business card." She goes, "Whatever you've given out in the past is whatever, but this is now for you to elevate who you are in this world, not necessarily what you do, but how people perceive you." She goes, "We got to get it in book form. That's your new business card." And she was right. She's always been right. She's still right today. And I can tell you by doing that, Chandler, like how the world sees me if they read the book. Hell, even if they just know that I have a book, and then
Yeah.
they see that there's an actual cover and there's pages of depth. If anybody's thinking of writing a book, just if you want to upgrade, what's the right words here? Upgrade what, Chandler? How would I say that to somebody? Upgrade your level of perception.
Your
Well,
authority. I mean, the root word of authority is author. You can't spell the word authority without the word author. And so if you want to become an authority in the mind of your prospects and customers, the fastest and best way to do that is when they find out you're an author. And so write the book. And then, yeah, to your point, it is your best business card. Because I mean, if you think about this, even Austin, from the conference that we both spoke at,
yeah.
what do we both have from that book? You gave me a copy of your book. I
Yeah,
gave you a
buddy.
copy of my book. If I would have given you my business card, or
Eh,
you give me, or vice versa, I guarantee we would not have that. It would have been totally forgotten. But then
Yeah.
when this came on the radar, or on my radar, and I'm prepping for this interview, I said, "Oh, that's right. I got that book in my office." I went and grabbed it, and here it is. Right. And so it is the best business card that exists because people don't throw it away. And it's a business card that actually adds value. And so I think that's what people unlock when they get the book done is you unlock the best business card on the planet. And it's a $5 or $10 business card that you can give out like crazy and watch it bring in a ton of leads, sales, and referrals for your business.
Yeah, I had a cool moment. So my daughter does cheer. Do you have any kids?
Not yet.
Okay. So they're different when they come, by the way. It is not, it's, I don't know how to prepare for them other than save a lot of money. You're going to need a lot of sleep, and life is completely different in a better way, but it is different. And so my daughter does cheer, which means I'm in another city and state every other week for about 3 to 4 months. It's hard to
Wow.
run a business when you do this, but that's cheer. So I'm down in Atlanta. I got a buddy in Atlanta. And so I go to visit my buddy. And when I look at his bookshelf, he's got your book and my book right next to each other. And I thought, is that not a sign that I need to reach out to him?
Hmm.
And it just kind of lit my heart up. I'm like, this moment in time that I can see, and it's saying I can see this. It's like, these are two people that have come together from completely different worlds, but because they both have a book, and my buddy's got both the books, and it just was like, I can't describe, no business card would have ever done that. That feeling, that thought. And just me to you, I want to say thank you for writing your book. I've used it. I'm sure hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of people have gone through it and learned from it, use it as a jig. Are your authors on your site? And to see that on my buddy's site, when I told Brett, I said, "Hey, Chandler's going to come on." He goes, "I got his book right here." And I'm like, how cool
That's
is
cool.
that? Like, there's
Yeah,
just
that's
not a
really cool.
feeling that I can say to describe what that is. Now, I know it's looked at, maybe as a business for a lot of people, but it's so much more than that. I went from being a real estate agent to an author. I that's like that's complete opposites, buddy. I went from being like felt like people looked at me like I was scum on the earth, that I was selling them something, to being a published author. And I'm like, what else does that in the world? Let alone I got something for my kids. I got something really good out there that I can help people now without me physically having to be there. And just me to you, I don't know how you fell into this industry, but you're in a good one, bud. And you're
It's
you're
funny you
doing good
mentioned that.
work. Yeah.
It's an identity shift, right? And I'll never forget the first time that someone introduced me as an author, and it just took me back because I'd published multiple books at that point, and I still would not introduce myself as an author. And I remember I was looking at houses. I was buying my first home. I was with my realtor, and we were looking at this home, and the market was going crazy. And we go to the house next door because they were about to list it. And she found that out somehow. And she said, "Let's go over there. Let's look at their house." And so the people are there, the homeowners are there. And I go to meet him and she says, "Oh, this is Chandler. He's an author." And it was just kind of this
Oh,
funny out of body experience where I would never introduce myself as an author. I would introduce myself as an entrepreneur. But you could just see
yeah.
on their face, they said, "Oh, he's an author. You mean an author could buy this house?" And it was
Eh,
just this weird, such a
it
funny thing that just forever shifted the way I think about it, and even the identity of, okay, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but also I'm an author. And a lot of times it means more to the people that you come into contact with than it means to you, but it's still a pretty wild feeling.
yeah, what okay, so just for fun, what were you before you were an author then?
I mean, I would just say entrepreneur. Like, I would still to this day, it's funny. I would not consider myself, or I would not call myself an author. I would just call myself, I'm an entrepreneur that's written some books.
Yeah. Okay, what was the last real job you had?
Phew, man, the one I got currently feels very real, very demanding.
What
But
what
I would say working for somebody else, it
Yes.
was probably, well, one of 2 things. It was I did landscaping, lawn care, well, no, I worked at a fitness and racket center in high school,
Okay.
and I was the tennis court maintenance guy, and then when I was in college, I had some internships with people, and one of the internships, they taught me how to run a painting business. So, I ended up
Mm,
running, the number 1 painting franchise
of
essentially for
course.
that company in the country and in the company, which I would say that was still working for somebody, I think, and I learned a it was an amazing, amazing, amazing experience, but I would say that was probably the last time.
Yeah, and how old were you then?
19?
Okay. So when I was 17 was the last time I had a job. I'm 41 now, so it was a long time ago. I was the head busboy at a restaurant. I worked there for 3 months. They were paying me at 17 years old, they were paying me $25 an hour to manage all the busboys. And then they came in and they said after 3 months, "This guy's making too much money. We need to do something else with him." And then at that point, I'm like, "I'm out of here, everybody." And that was my last job. I had literally like one job my entire life for 3 months, went to the top of the food chain as quick as I could. And that's when I kind of realized like I'm an entrepreneur. You give me your problem, let me fix it. And I'll build something, I'll create something. And it's funny now being an author, and I think I heard you say it, Chandler, like, I don't normally introduce myself that way. That's not who I feel like I am, but I know I am. And when people introduce me that way, it's like, damn, to have best-selling author, international speaker on my first 2 things as my resume compared to barely passed high school, can't believe he got a college degree, was on welfare, like, it completely changes, and it's fun to be in that moment, and,
That's yeah.
people I don't know about you, I love having signed books by the authors because I always thought the author was some, like, make-believe character out in the world, and so when I'd meet one, I'd get them to sign my book, and then when I come around with my book, they're always like, "Can you sign it?" And I go, "I would love to have a signed copy too, isn't that cool?" And I'm the one that has to sign it, and it's a reality identity is the word you used, and for anybody listening to have a chance to upgrade your identity in life. It starts inside and then you make it go out to the world. So you got to start up here. And then how do I do that to upgrade to the world? And I think once you do that, it's like everything's better, Chandler. Um, and it's a fight, it's a struggle to get that plane off the ground. It's twice as hard as you think, if not 10 times harder, and it costs you twice as much and it takes twice as long, right? Does that seem like a fair statement?
Probably so. I would say it's simple, but it's not easy. It's we try to make the process as simple as possible, but it's not easy. I mean, it's gonna be difficult. But it will be the best and most rewarding experience you ever have. You're distilling, I mean, it's an identity shift completely, like we talked about, but you're distilling the best thing that you know into the written word. And then that written word is going on to hopefully get in the hands of thousands of people. And it helps your customers, it helps your employees, it helps people who can't even afford to work with you, it helps maybe your kids and your grandkids down the road, but it helps a lot of people. And so to be able to do something like that, it's not easy, right? But if it was easy, everybody would do it. But we do try to simplify the process as much as possible. I think it's worth doing. So it's worth the effort and the short-term sacrifice to create something that will outlast you.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things that we work on a lot is legacy, Chandler, and it's a legacy piece. It's a notch in my legacy belt, and I can't tell you what it's worth, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
Hard to say what it's worth, but it's definitely worth it. So, well, let's. I like to end with one thing, Chandler. From one entrepreneur to another, to all the entrepreneurs listening, what's one piece of advice you have for another entrepreneur?
Who? So on
Yeah,
from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, so I'll set the book stuff aside. Take big swings and have fun. You remember why you're doing this. You got into entrepreneurship, and at one point it was a life-changing thing. It was this thing that once you unlocked it, you said, "I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this." And I'm reminded of right now I'm getting my pilot's license. And the first time I ever flew the plane, it was the most magical thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I'm on the 1 yard of getting my license right now as we speak. And I want to beat my head against the cockpit
yeah,
because it's frustrating. I've been at the 1 yard line for so long and I'm getting frustrated. It's getting monotonous. It's all this stuff. And that is entrepreneurship. What you begged for and prayed for becomes monotonous and frustrating at points, but you can't let it suck the joy out of it. And you're in this because you're passionate about it, I would assume. So don't lose your joy. Have fun. Take big swings, and don't start playing scared just because you got ahead. It's something that I'm having to remind myself now is because when you're early on, you got nothing to lose. So cool. I'll put all my chips on the table. There's not that many chips. But then you start making it, and I found myself starting to clench up a bit. I start to get stressful. I started playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And it just became no fun. And so I think I'm in the process right now of refining my joy.
mm,
It and it is just it's magical, and I'm not there yet, and I'm having to remind myself, "Hey, man, take big swings. What are you doing? Life is short." And so you might as well enjoy it, and you might as well have some fun, and you might as well play some big bets, and either way, you didn't have it when you started, so if you lose it all, well, at least you had fun doing it.
yeah. What great
And
advice
and you made
there.
some big bets along the way.
Yeah, and just remember when everybody's hearing Chandler say that, about a half hour ago, he said calculated risk too, by the way. So take big swings with calculated risk. Don't go to the casino and bet it all on green. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about big swings with calculated risk. And calculated risk means seeking mentors and guides to run your ideas by. That's how people like Chandler wins. I'm sure sure you didn't do everything without getting advice from everybody. I know I get as much advice as I can get. And that's what happens. That's what helps you win long term is get the vision, make it clear, push the chips on the table, and make sure you're running these ideas by people who have maybe been there and done it and who care about you and who want to help you win. So yeah, I love that, Chandler. Well, hey, brother, thank you for your time today. I know there'll be some lives positively impacted by your message here today. So I appreciate you. If there's anything I can ever do to help, I'd love actually when you get your pilot's license for you to send me a message if you would do that.
Cool.
And
You got it.
I'd love to celebrate that with you just for that one moment. So growing up in airplanes, I know the joy of it and I know what it means. And it's something special, something people can't take away from me. So I love it. Well, Chandler, thank you for your time today, brother. I will see you around, I'm sure, and go and pack some lives, man. Good seeing you.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.